dinner.
Okay, well, this is Holly Parsons interviewing my father-in-law, William L. Parsons. We call him Bill, and today's date is April 23rd, 2012. Well, Bill, let's start with your earliest childhood memory. Where were you born?
I was born in Richville, Utah, in the old hospital. I think it was Dr. Maloof delivered me. He was a doctor that lived over in Glenwood, but all the people from Glenwood went to him. And then I lived in the little town of Glenwood, Utah. And it was probably maybe 300 people lived in the town. That was the total population. A little farming community. Everybody had cows and horses and just little plots of land, not very big plots, but just little plots of land. Some 40 acres would be a pretty big spot.
What was your house like growing up?
The house was great. It was a big, we had a 2-story house. There was Mom and Dad had a bedroom, Grandpa had a bedroom, Marcia and I, my older brother, had a bedroom, and my sisters had bedrooms upstairs. And then also lived with I had a cousin that lived with us called Gordon. He was older, probably 10 years older, about the same age as my oldest sister, maybe a little older. He was orphaned from my mother's family, so he lived with us at the time too, and my grandpa.
Was your cousin raised with you?
He was older, but he was orphaned when he was probably about 12 years old. So my mother took care of him. There was a family of about 6 children, and they were distributed throughout the Payne family for those kids to grow up. Gordon was the oldest, and I knew him just a little bit as growing up. He was the older brother. And I had a Grandpa Payne. Grandpa Payne was Mother's father, and he lived with us. And Mother took care of him.
How many siblings did you have?
I had, at the start, I had 2 older sisters, 1 older brother, and myself. And then after I was 10 years old, I had a little sister. That's when Brenda came in.
What was family life like?
It was mostly dealing with the farm, chores with the farm, and the church was a very important thing to go to church. And it was the community was, we had little, it was little things in the community. Like I remember 4th of July, everybody go to the church. Everybody in the community would make, someone would make root beer, someone would make ice cream, and some, hamburgers. And then we'd go down to the church and have a nice big picnic. And Christmas time was, after Christmas was over, we'd always have a big Christmas tree burn, and then have a big ward get together. And it was friends and family, church, and we did have the school at Glenwood too.
And was your father a farmer throughout your whole childhood, or did he do anything else?
For my childhood, he was a farmer, but he also had to have other jobs to supplement the farm. He also had a route hauling. He had a creamery in Monroe, and you could have, I think his Class B milk was milk cans, and Dad would go to all the surrounding farms. Everybody had a few cows. And then he'd pick up every day. He'd pick up the milk and take it to the creamery over to Monroe, where they made cheese. So he always had another job to supplement the farm, because you couldn't make enough on the farm.
Was it just a dairy farm, or did he grow vegetables and crops?
We had the gardens were big enough that we'd have carrots and potatoes. We'd store them in a potato pit, and we'd have potatoes, and we'd have carrots, and we'd always have meat from, a calf or a steer. Most of it was just, we ate meat and potatoes. But we didn't sell any of the garden stuff. That was stored. Then Mother would bottle everything you could think of. Beans, peas. Then when they were able to get freezers, they'd freeze it. We didn't have a freezer all the time.
Did your mother ever have another job besides raising the family?
Yes, when I was first growing up, her job was to take care of the family. But then I got to be about 8 years old, I think, maybe even younger. Then she went and worked over to the bakery, serving the bakery.
The Parsons Bakery?
Parsons Bakery. That was my uncle's bakery.
Guess we're on to teenagers.
Oh, teenagers?
Yes, tell me about what teenage life was for you.
Maybe I ought to finish when we was in school, in elementary. That was probably the highlight of my there, other than the church, because we had 2 rooms in the school. We had 3 grades, so there's 1, 2, and 3, and 3, 4, 3, 5, and 4, 5, and 6. So the school was a big central part of the thing. And then learning how to do the chores was also a thing. You grew up with it. It started when you was old enough to feed the cows. You fed the cows. Then you graduated to milking the cows, things like that.
Did the girls in your family have different chores than you, or did you all work together?
My sisters were quite a bit older than me, but they had Margaret, my oldest sister. She took part in taking care of the dairy, the cows. My other sister, Claire Lee, she did not do that. She didn't get involved in things like that. But they had their chores to do, and take care of the house, help Mom.
Who was your earliest childhood friend that you can remember?
Probably Bruce Hendrickson. And then I had Terry Peterson, Max Sampson. Bruce was 1 year older than me, and he was just up the street. And then Terry was also up the street. Max was my same age, but I didn't start to go on with him till, we all met at church, so it was just a natural progression. We didn't have a whole bunch. I only had maybe 2 friends my age, and then had older people that were, like Bruce was older than me. Terry was 2 years older than me. But we knew every hill in the whole town. We knew every ditch. We knew everything about that town.
What kind of stuff did you do to play?
We played, one of the things we did was, in the evening we'd play kick the can.
That's a real thing.
Yes, it's a real thing. you put a can in out in the middle. And then everybody runs and hides. One person is called it, and they run and check, find them, and then they run over and they jump over the can for Karen, over the can for Bill. Then you're caught. Then if somebody gets by and kicks the can, then that releases everybody, and they could go hide again. So the game starts all over again.
Do you know any other games that you used to play?
We had a thing where we hide and seek, but we had a horse called Tony, and one of us would ride on the horse and go around the block. Then everybody else would hide, and then the guy on the horse would go. It's just hide and seek.
But with a horse, so that'd be funner.
Yeah.
I wish I played that way. That'd be funner.
When we go, it was just open. We had all the hills on that, Lace Hill. We go up there and play. It was like when we were a little bit older. I think mothers and brothers, they say, just come back for dinner. You know what dinner's going to be at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. If you're not here, you're not going to eat.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, your young childhood years?
I think they're the best. I'd like to do it again. But if I come back again, I'd like to have a little town like we did. Because everybody we're just friends and family. We're friends and family. That's the way it was. You might be cousins, but you're also friends. There wasn't no difference between friends and relatives. It was just that way. And I had an older brother that's about 3 years older than me. That's my friends. Also have brothers about 3 years older than them. And then they had another set of brothers. So there's always if the Morris, my brother, that age, they come back to us. Well, the big brothers would help us out, you know. So it was always.
Do you have a favorite memory of your parents?
A favorite memory? It just seems like they worked a lot. I know at one time they liked to play a lot, but it was mostly they did their jobs, you know, work, take care of you. I know my parents I did have trouble when I moved over to the elementary, and Mom and Dad tried hard to get me involved in Richfield, so they got me involved in baseball and other things like band, and so I could get friends over here in Richfield. I had a hard time transferring from that little school to this big school in Richfield.
What grade were you in when you transferred to Richfield? Fourth. And how did you get there? Did your parents drive you? Or?
Bus. We got a bus.
Oh, you did have a bus.
Mm-hmm. Teenage years.
Yep, let's go to the teenage years.
They were fun also. we came over in the teenage years. We came over to advance to junior high, and I stuck mostly with. Well, I had friends from all over, but Max and I were probably the closest at that time, and it was just a little harder adjusting to some of the things. But since I'd already played Little League, I knew most of the people, and I got along with them good. We probably got more trouble than we should have.
Would you say you were in the popular crowd or not so popular?
We was kind of popular, but we was on this side of the street. And, you know, there's this side and that side of the street. I could mingle with any one of them, but I was more on the other side. Like, we weren't afraid to be smoking, and we weren't afraid to open a beer and things like that. Where this other side would not even think of it or wouldn't openly do it.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about your teenage years?
Like even high school, I had a good time in high school too. I did play in football. Did pretty good in football, and I played in the band. And it was a time when you was getting to be seniors. At that time, we had to deal with, like, what are you going to do? The first thing that came up to mind was we had Vietnam, and you was going to get drafted. I had friends like the people older than me. When they graduated, some of them got drafted, but slam bam. So that was the thing you had to deal with, is the thought of what you're going to do. And I finally thought, well, I'll take electronics after high school. I did okay in high school. I wasn't no scholar, but I passed. I might have a B average. I wasn't interested in too much of science or anything. It's hard to figure out what to be interested in. But I chose to go to electronics. So I went to the tech up to Provo. Took 2 years.
Your electronics is a lot different than what mine would be, so explain that more, because I don't know what.
Electronics, I was learning about transistors. Like how to design and be an electronic technician.
Oh, okay.
Like how to diagnose the problem of a TV or a radio, and they were just barely even thinking about computers. We took an extra semester to teach us more about, like, JK flops, and they're just barely teaching about computers and how they worked. And that's because they just come onto the scene. And the computers that they were dealing with they were buildings. They weren't not like if you worked on a computer then, it would be a great big building. There was IBM, Univac, and had that be a whole building. But we were just learning about that. And then after I graduated, I had fun up there. I maybe had too much fun and not enough not enough applying myself to electronics. Had too much fun because there's beer and things like that. We just had a lot of fun. And then after I graduated, that's when I got drafted.
So you did graduate the technical school?
Yeah.
And then you got drafted. Do you want to talk about that?
I can talk about it. But as far as that goes, I got out of the tech, but I had a job for about 2 months, and I was just sending out my applications, you know, your resumes.
Mm-hmm.
I just starting to get some back. I think we graduated in September.
What job were you doing?
I had a little job in the interstate had just got finished up, uh, well, up by Cedar City and also up Salina Canyon. And they needed somebody to reseed the bar pits and that. So he had to drive a tractor and a seeder, and then just got that hydro seeder where you could squirt water on it and seed where you couldn't get the tractor. So I had that job for maybe 2 months. Then I got my draft notice. And so I was drafted in it was December 3rd, 1969.
Did you understand about the war? Did you know why you were going there?
Well, it was always brought down to us that we were protecting the world against communists.
And how did you feel about it personally?
I didn't I think we're all brainwashed in the fact, well, see, before, even in high school and elementary, communism was the worst thing that could ever happen. And we had nuclear, drills to get under the desk. And I do remember the bombs. They had atomic bombs in Nevada. I remember watching those go off. But when we were growing up, war was the thing. Like our dads, and most of the dads were returned World War II people, or in that era.
So was your father a veteran?
He was not a veteran. He was too young for the First World War, and he was too old for the Second World War. But in between, there was a lot of people. That World War II was a big, that was a big thing. We were heroes. They were war heroes. All John Wayne and everybody. Warriors is what you wanted to be. So, but I remember just a little bit about Korea. I didn't know very much about that. But it started coming about 64 and 65 when they started to build up Vietnam. And it was to save, the purpose I thought was communists it would just be a dominoes effect. One country goes down, then another one. That's what we were trying to protect, I guess. So I didn't really understand it, but you're expected to. I guess maybe I didn't have enough guts not to. Because I have friends that were drafted, and I don't know, sometimes I wonder, maybe those that didn't go had more guts than I did. I wasn't that convinced of it.
So you did have friends that were drafted but they didn't go?
I had friends, no, most of my friends that were drafted here, in this area, they're patriotic, they'll go. But other than in the cities, there's all this, some people would run away from the draft. But I had too many friends that were drafted. And we'd already had friends from high school that got killed before we even went there.
Wow, that's kind of been very fearful for a teenage boy to, I can't even put myself there. That's just crazy.
It was just part of I don't know, maybe somebody, I thought that personally, maybe those people that run to Canada, maybe they had more guts than we did, I don't know. I don't know.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about the war?
My final opinion of the war is we had no business being in. Not any. And I don't know if it helped or anything, but I know I have a lot of friends that it's taken a long time to deal with it. Because when we come back, I was in the infantry. When I spent a year out in the jungle and out also in the rice paddy, I did not have a cot to sleep on. We didn't have a cot. We slept on the ground. We didn't have, when the monsoons come, it would pour. We just got used to you could sleep in it, wake up in a puddle. And you always had the fear of sapper attacks, ambushes, booby traps. And you didn't even really know any particular reason why, other than just what we do.
Was there any one thing that kept you going?
The one thing that kept me going, I remember the first 2 months or so when I was over there, I got so damn homesick and tired of being mosquito bites and out in the weather and thinking, what is this about? We'd had contact several times, and I remember looking at that. You could see the big airplanes going over, bringing people in. You could also, some of them would be hospital airplanes. Then there'd see some coming in. I just remember one time out in a rice paddy, I was homesick as hell. And it's a whole different world. I grew up in a desert. This is tropical, rain, hot, mosquitoes. And I just looked up in that plane. I said, I'm going home. I'll be a soldier till and then I forgot. I tried to get home. Just take it one day at a time.
Were you ever on a plane before Vietnam? And so that was your first time ever being in a plane?
Yeah.
What's the first thing you did when you got home?
The first thing, I called Claire Lee. They come and pick me up from the plane. Then we come home. And Mom and Dad come pick me up and went to the house and slept. And then it was, and I got home. I had to go back. I had 3 weeks off.
Oh, okay.
Then I had to go back not to Vietnam, but to Cambodia. I was still in the Army. I didn't take, you could extend over there and get completely out of the Army for 2 months. Or you could come do your year and then do finish your rest of your tour someplace I finished mine in Cambodia, Texas.
Oh. What did you do in Texas?
My first assignment, I didn't have to do it, but we just get charters. I was supposed to be honor guard. Then they hurried and changed it. So we just went around, and Cambodia is a firing range for there's Fort Sam Houston, and there's an Air Force base right there. People have to go do their fire, gun weapons, qualify for the weapons. So we we'd go, could I take care of the ranges? It was a great job. I learned how to fix up pop-up targets. When you shoot them, they drop down. They're electronic, so I learned how to do that. But that we had time off. It was an old base. It was an old German prisoner of war camp, and they had made a swimming pool. It was just a big hole, and they cemented it. It was a fun place to be. We chased armadillos.
I've always wanted to see one of those. I think they're cute.
And then I come home after that.
You want to have a break, or are you okay?
Let's go do whatever you want.
Do you need a break? Okay. Do you need a tissue? Alrighty. Well, what else would you like to talk about?
Like, what would you like to know?
Okay, what was your first real job after the war?
I come back. Well, I had a job after high school with the state road. So I just come back, and first I jobbed with the Reinhold guy. He was working construction, and he gave me a job. He just gave me a job. See, I only had Blaine Breinholt is my friend. He's about 3 years older, and I followed him 2 months. We was 2 months apart. This is an interesting thing, because he was over there for 2 months ahead of me, and I followed him from Fort Lewis. Then I went to the 25th Division. Brian was in the 1st Cav. 25th Division split up. They sent me to the 1st Cav. And I'd already got a letter from Blaine, because we corresponded a little bit when we was out there. And the company sounded familiar. But I went to the 5th and the 7th Cav, and I think it was Delta Company. He was the company clerk. He said, I got a good company, I'll put you in this company. So I spent 6 months with those guys. They were in the Central Highlands. Before I was down in the 25th, they were down in the lower bushland. But his dad gave me a job after I come home. And then I got a job with the state road. And then
Go ahead. Anything
in the meantime,
else?
when I come home, I started going out with my wife. And then we just continued, and we started our family.
How old were you when you got married?
23.
And how old were you when you became a daddy?
47. No, it wouldn't be 27. It would have been 25.
How did you come about naming your first child?
We looked at the name. They have the name charts.
Mm-hmm.
We was kind of going with biblical names at the time, and we went through it. I think Alan's the first name.
That was a pretty easy one then.
But we threw in Thane, Adam Thane. I don't think he likes Thane.
Where did you get Thane from?
I'm not sure. We had a plan for I think Clinton, but then we had another friend that just named their kid Clinton, so that scratched that. So we went back to Adam.
I've never heard of Thane before, so I've always been curious where you got that.
Dane, I'm not sure. It was something probably Leanna had in mind. Sounded good to us. Adam Thane.
And how old were you when you had your second child?
Oh, don't ask me that age. There's 2 years difference.
Okay. How did you come up with her name?
It's right up there. Amy's right up at the top. Look at the list. It's right up on top. Amy.
Do I dare even ask about Matthew?
Biblical names. I don't know. There wasn't anything special. Matthew. What I know, Leanna wanted. I have a great grandfather named Elijah, and I just didn't. I don't know why I didn't want that one. So we went with Matthew.
What kind of jobs were you doing to support your family during that time period?
I was working at the state road. That was mostly it.
And what other jobs have you had?
Well, I made a big move decision when I was 7 years into the state road, because I could see I didn't feel, even coming back from the military, you do a lot of things that are very demanding and very they're life things. Then you come back to work and they act like you can't even use a screwdriver. You know what I mean? So they weren't getting me involved with any equipment, driving trucks, so I made a choice to just break off from it and go up north, and I even tried selling things. It didn't work out too good. But then I did get a job as a purchasing agent when we were up in Salt Lake. I just made maybe it was a mistake, but we did just go up, break it off. Everybody down here thought, what are you doing that for, you know? But we did it, I did it. And I thought that while I was, to make it a little bit interesting, while I was driving the dump trucks and that, I listened to like Zig Ziglar and different motivational people. And I just got, I'm gonna do it. So I did it. It probably wasn't logical, but I did it. And then the selling part didn't work out very good. I found out you can sell me better than I can sell you. You can tell me why you don't want it. I believed you. But I did get a job with my electronic background and my little bit of sales experience as a purchasing agent for an electronic company that these two engineers broke off from Univac and started making their own computer terminals. And that was, at that time, Univac was a very big company, and these guys are very smart. They were very small, but they developed and designed this to break off from Univac, so it was compatible with Univac. And I worked there for 2 years, and I learned how to be a purchasing agent and deal with people coming in and try to sell you things. And I had to deal with there was over $1 million worth of transistors and resistors. I had to learn that and how to deal with people and try to get the best deal. I learned that sometimes these engineers, if you ask people like a salesman, he'll help you out. People help you out if you ask him to help you. They want to help you because sometimes the engineers, they don't know what component's the cheapest or what will do it. So you ask him. So I was able to knock their price that they'd already originally had for it. I dropped it down a lot just by asking questions. But I didn't have it. But it worked out for a couple of years. Then they lost their company.
Well, that's why you stopped, because they lost their company.
Yeah, there was a time where it was in the 80s, and people, some things were going good, but they couldn't get they'd sell them, and you got to have the money. It just stopped. The money didn't flow, and then somebody else from Milwaukee bought it, and they wanted to change all the stat.
So what did you do from then?
Well, I had its opportunity that a guy said, I want you to go in the business, I'll give you a quarter for the sale. So I said, okay, I'll do that. That works good. And then everything went dead. Waited for about 2 months, a couple of weeks, and didn't hear from him. He'd had a heart attack.
Oh.
So I started with nothing after that.
Oh, wow. Is that when you came back to Richfield, or?
And when I first started, I worked with my brother-in-law a little bit. The money got worse and worse. Then I finally went out to Nevada and worked on a drill rig with my cousin Norman. He had a exploration drill rig for minerals.
Was the family still up in Salt Lake when you were in Nevada?
Yep, I had to move. I moved out. Well, I had to travel out there to Nevada, and I was a driller's helper. Like, that's putting those rods up, and I went out there about 2:30, and I come back at 180. His work.
And what made you decide that it wasn't for you?
I got so homesick for the kids and my wife. I come back, and then it was pretty dead for a while. Then I got a job for construction.
What led you back to Richfield?
Just closer to the family, and Youngs were here. That's a construction company. I was here.
Okay.
And family was here, and I feel like you have a little closer. You can take care of your things better. You could be up north, and you got a lot of things to do, but if you don't have no money, you can't do anything. And I like it down here anyway. It's not as hectic.
So after the construction job, where did you go from there?
The construction went dead. The highways were done. I went to driving coal trucks. And then the one job I had hauling coal, it stopped. So I went with Barney's and Barney Trucking, and I could haul out to the gold mines out to Nevada. That's when I started the long haul trip. Just in order to, I felt like it's easier for me to go and do the job and come back with some money and take the kids to McDonald's, rather than not and say, we don't have nothing. We can't do that. So it's a matter of money, providing for the family. It's not something. It was hard to be away from home. It was really hard. It took me a long time to think, this is what I gotta do.
Well, I really don't know what kind of hobbies and stuff you're into. You want to talk about that? What kind of stuff do you like?
I learned how to make polish.
Talk about your polish making. That's something interesting about you.
That was funny. It happened right after. I was never into polishing it at all. Didn't know how to polish a thing. And they told me, old Barney's, I better wash my truck once in a while. Because I'm up in the mines and it's muddy and it's lime. It's about as dirty a job as you can get. And so I would go home. I'd come back to the yard and I'd wash it up. I didn't know how to do anything with aluminum. And I thought, well, hell, I'll buy me some polish. So I bought some polish. And it was harder than to work with, so I'm not going to do that. And it was just right after my father's death. And it was hard for when Mom and Dad passed away. But Dad just passed away. And driving, you have to lot of thinking about everything. And I got to this one truck stop and this guy came up and he said, he wanted to sell me some polish. He said, look at this truck, I don't polish. This is a working truck. And he said, then just something went like that. Okay, I'll buy a couple of bottles. And I tried it and it worked, and I thought, if he could do that, I could figure out how to do that. So I just worked with it. They worked really good, better than any I've tried, so I just then figured out how he made it. Just by smelling it and looking at different things and trying different things. And it worked. And I did try to get it, people wanted me to get it in the business, so I said, well, how you do that? Just get you some bottles and labels. The first thing, I showed it to the boss. One of the guys showed it to the boss at Barney's, and Brad says, I want a case of that. So, well, how do you go about getting it? How much in it? How many's in the case? How many bottles are? So, I come over here and bought bottles at the pharmacy. That's the only place I could get any bottles. So I bought some and took and made some for him. And he started buying it. And then people has said, well, just try to do it. So I started putting it out in different places. And I didn't lose any money, but you got to spend a whole bunch. I didn't make any money either.
Did you ever try thinking about patenting it, or?
Patenting's too, you could figure it's maybe for the bigger companies it would be okay, but there's too many. It's most of these things like Coca-Cola, it's a secret, it's not a patent. And it costs a lot to patent on things, like thousands of dollars. And it would be, there's lots of polishes out there.
Do you still make polish now?
I can, yeah.
Do people still ask for it?
Yeah, if I show it to them, the word is still around here. I've had people ask about it.
How did you come up with the name?
That was something. Amy came up with the name.
Oh, how cute. How old was she?
Well, we were just probably in high school. It was kind of a family deal when it first started. And it's a question like, okay, you got a product, what do you do? How do you start it? How many bottles are in a case? How do you decide that? Because you got so many boxes. is it 12 or 16? So we had to go, we got the box, we put 16 in it, that's 16 to the case. But Amy and Leanna and them were talking, I wasn't around at the time, and Amy said, well, let's call it Pop's Polish. And it stuck. Then we just kind of filled around with some of the little things on it to make a label. I still got some labels. And I think if I wanted to and had enough money, I could start it up. But it's too hard to, by the time you do all the little licensing and permitting, and you got to sell a lot. Make it work. And then playing the guitar is what I like to do. That's a hobby.
You're
Digging
getting
weeds.
pretty good at it. You just teach yourself guitar. Did you do piano too?
No, I never done any piano.
Oh, okay.
What else would you like to know?
What would you say your biggest achievement was in your life? Better not be a fire alarm.
I don't know. I don't think you can count the biggest. My biggest achievement was when I poked my hand up there and said, I'm going home. And I went home out of Vietnam. I don't have any, it took me a while to get over it, and I probably never get over things, but I got home in one piece. And I had some experiences that I thought, I can't get over that. But I remembered, I pointed up at that bird and said, I'm going home. I'm going with you when we're here. That was, other than that, and I do feel like my family is my best achievement. I can't do any better than that. I just think they're, and I wish I could do more, but I think my family is it's just grown up, you know. I want them to I didn't want them to be, I wanted them to be themselves. I think family was the most important thing. The little things is just, there ain't no big things. It's just the little things. And every time I drive, my little goal is to get there and get back in one piece. And I keep that in mind. Again, I don't want to think too far ahead, this way or that way. Just want to get there, come back home. But my family is my biggest achievement. And my grandkids are the biggest achievement, I guess.
You're a terrific grandpa. My kids love you very much.
Well, I love them too. I wish I could probably express it better, but maybe they'll figure it out someday.
Oh, they know. You're probably the strongest in their life right now, grandparent, so.
I think you'll find out in life that you're no better off than the child that's doing the worst. That's how you feel. If he's up or if she's up, then you're up. But you're no better off than how the worst one feels. You know what I mean? You'd like all of them to be up, but I'm proud of all of them now.
there anything else you'd like to talk about? Something you'd like future generations to know about? My kids will be listening to this someday in their lives, so anything you'd like to...
The only thing I think is just you don't have to try to reach to the stars. Sometimes there's little things, just the little things. You don't have to make a big, just pick up the little pieces of dust you get every day. There's a little gold every day. You don't pick up you don't pick the big things up. It's just the little things. And they add up just as fast as if you pick up a big nugget, that's great, but the little ones are the most important.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
I'm glad I know you. I'm
glad I know.
Grateful for that.
I'm proud of my daughter-in-law. Thank you.
How did that turn out? Oh, you're playing with it.
How did you have to turn it on?
Now he's trying to figure out video games. Okay, you gotta look what you're doing.
Yeah, but you know.
You hold on to that. Now you go to turn off console.
Okay.
Okay, you go.
I don't know about that.
There you go. Now press the green button.
The green button.
This one's green. Oh. What did you do?
Select back.
Okay, now hold on to this middle button again. Hold on to it till it pops up. Now use this cursor here, this thing here, and go to turn off console. The top, is that the one? Yeah. Now press
Turn off console.
the little green button. Oh.
I don't know how to turn it on.
Oh, what just happened? Okay, just a minute.
Spit something out.
Yes, I did. Okay, go to turn off console. Okay. Well, that was a fun way to end it.
I don't know what I did.